Right.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is our Manhattan Facebook Live, our town hall that we're having with Representative Dr. Megan Steele from the 51st District in the Kansas House. I'm John Mata, and I'm the chair of our Manhattan. We have Ed McNamara, our producer, and we have Dr. Steele here. She was on here recently, and we're having her back so quick because there were some things we wanted to talk about that we really couldn't do that night because it was kind of like the bread was still in the oven and we had to wait till it got baked before we could actually talk about it. So we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, we just want to get a little update on what's going on in the House. But before we even get into that, I just wanted to get Representative Steele's comments or find out if she heard what was going on in Manhattan today. Uh, it was kind of buzz on social media that ICE was doing some apprehensions in town, and it appeared that some notes went out to schools in USD 383 to be on the watch out for this, and that they had policies established to take care of these situations. And it kind of raised a lot of questions. I don't think anything really happened anywhere other than those apprehensions. But I know on our own page, we got some comments back about what is this? What are these policies? So anyway, did you hear about this, and what's your reaction to the hoopla?
Well, hi, John and Ed. I'm so glad to be back with you guys and talk about some amazing things we've been doing at the State House. My phone was blowing up today with text messages and Facebook messages and emails from pictures, news articles that were going on here in Manhattan while I was in Topeka. I love that ICE is in our community and doing what they are supposed to be doing. I was appalled to find out that there was a potential letter sent from 383 to all teachers. And I do have questions in to Superintendent Reed, and hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of this to figure out what's going on.
So, okay, well, that'd be good because I know there's a lot of people curious about it. What we put up on it, it's probably by now get close to 20,000 views, so that
Wow.
is created quite some interest. So, on to the work at hand. Before we get into the specific issue, what just anything in general that's going on in this state house compared to when you were on very soon
Yeah.
ago?
So, being on appropriations this year, we are knee deep in appropriations and we are on track to meet our 2% cut goal again, which I know may not sound like a lot of money, but last year we cut 2%. This year we cut 2%. And if we do that again next year, then we're going to be on that track to really have that balanced budget that we're all reaching for. So that is a good thing going on on the House side. I'm not sure where the Senate is, but that's where the House is.
So, okay, well, then on to what we didn't talk about last time, which I really wanted to talk about because it affected us here in Manhattan. And that was at the time, uh, it was Senate Bill 180, which was the one that made sure that defined sex, and in particular that men's are to use the men's room and the men's locker room, and women and girls are supposed to use the women's and girls locker room. And we had an issue here in Manhattan where the city said, "Oh, we don't need to follow that bill. We're going to keep our gender ordinance." And I had actually talked to Speaker Hawkins about that. He said it did apply or should apply. I talked to the county attorney, and he told me he was going to go to the AG. And I think a lot of that's the reason we ended up with what you guys are doing now with, I believe, is Senate Bill 244. So why don't you take it away and let us know what happened with that?
Yes. So when I was on last time, I knew all of this stuff going on, and I just wasn't able to share yet because there were lots of little pieces to the puzzle that all had to come together. But Senate Bill 244 originally started out as a House bill, and that House bill, so before I got into the legislature, they passed the driver's license bill, and then the Kansas Supreme Court had a problem with it. And so we already knew coming into session this year that we were going to have to fix that. So whenever you go to the driver's license place, Department of Revenue, to get your driver's license, that it is male or female, and that's it. But we also knew that we had this issue where men were still in women's locker rooms, where men were still in women's restrooms, and vice versa. And we needed to protect women and we needed to protect children. But to be able to do that, we also needed to add in civil penalties. We needed to make sure that the bill was being able to be enforced. And so we worked really hard with our leadership and we developed a plan to add this, what the media refers to as the bathroom bill, onto the driver's license bill. And then, in order to help prevent mass chaos, we took the House bill and dumped it into a Senate bill so it could go straight to the House floor, be passed straight to the Senate, bypass committee, and then await the governor's 10 days so we can override that veto.
Yeah. And so just let me explain a little more on why that affected us here in Manhattan is
Yeah.
that original bill, that SB 180, totally defined what it meant to be male and female, that, males produce small gametes, sperm, and females produce large gametes, ova, and, made it very clear and said it was not discriminatory to have separate spaces based on basically biological sex. So that went out there. But the thing was, there weren't any penalties regarding it. And Manhattan has their own gender ordinance, and trying to see if we can get it up here in the. Do you see it there? Try to get it in there. I'm not seeing it, but anyway, they have their own um, gender ordinance, and the way that they define it is they say, and they define gender identity means one's
Yeah.
perceived or actual self-identification as a male or a female, regardless to one's anatomical sex at birth. It can be described as cisgender or transgender. And then it goes on to say that you can't discriminate by that gender identity. And if you read that, it says self identification. So, in essence, that made Manhattan a self ID state, or not state, city. And if you go by that definition, basically we're a unisex town
Right.
because all you have to do is say, I'm this and I can go in. So, consequently, actually, it was almost 2 years ago, there were some transgender lifeguards. We had citizens complain. The city said, and the citizens referenced SB 180. They said, we have a bill on this. The city said, no. Well, they say it's not discriminatory, but we're still going to go by ours, and we're still going to let people into both. And so parents pulled their kids out of swim lessons and things like that because of this. They had sent emails or complained to the city. The city did tell the commission. That's how I got involved, and that's why I talked to the speaker and to the county attorney, and that's why we really needed this bill. So hopefully nothing goes wrong. We get it override when that veto happens, and then we can keep the boys out of the girls' room, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh,
We are sitting at 87 votes in the House, and we only need 84, and the Senate needs 27, and they're sitting at 30. One of their members was gone, so they should have had 31, but one of their members was absent. So we are sitting really good to get that veto override that we need, and that's one of the reasons, the situation that you described. That was one of the reasons that I jumped all over this whenever it was, kind of word of it was getting around, is because that's unacceptable that we cannot send our teenage girls to the swimming pool without fear that a grown man would be sitting in their bathroom and in their changing room. And so I was very excited to be able to help with this bill, kind of work behind the scenes. But I will say that our House leadership and the two individuals that carried the bill on the floor, Representative Humphreys and Representative Lewis, did an absolutely amazing job in representing children and women.
So, okay, to move on with that, there was, we posted it on our Manhattan, this article by The Reflector, which is pretty biased publication, but it's one that our
Pretty?
local
Just pretty biased?
but it's one that our local newspaper, the Mercury, tends to post a lot of articles from. So that's why I pay attention to it, because a lot of people are getting information from it. And they wrote that this bill spits on basic human decency and had a bunch of spin that they put in it. So I thought we could spend a little time going through how they criticized it and
Sure.
giving a little rebuttal to it. I know we have a question here about how someone can report someone in the wrong restroom, and I think we'll get to that as we go
Sure.
through
Yeah, we'll be
these.
sure to answer that because the bill outlines it very specifically.
Yeah. So one of their first was their complaint that this was, rushed through and expedited through and didn't have enough time for debate and all that. So what's your reaction to that
Well, so the
criticism?
yeah, so the bathroom bill was amended onto the driver's license bill. Some people thought that that raised a germane issue. So germane means, does the amendment relate to the bill? Because an amendment can't change the main part of the bill. And since they were both dealing with gender, the amendment was germane. And amendments aren't things that are known. So you get to debate amendments in committee. So this was an amendment brought on in committee, and anyone could debate and comment and vote on it in committee. And once it was added to the bill went through channels, and then we got to hear it on the House floor. And we had over 6 hours of a hearing on the House floor. So I think you had ample time to let your voice and be known how you felt about that bill.
Yeah. And from my take on it, I thought it needed to be expedited, and the fact that really you already debated that on the original SP 180.
Yes,
Uh, and to me, it needed to get through quickly because we're going to get to swimming season soon, and I want to make sure that we've got those locker rooms taken care of. So
you got it.
now the other is they tried to say that this bill was just targeted against this legislator, um, this boatman who was, I guess, picked by the committee people to replace someone, and that's actually a male that poses as a female. Uh, so again, my take is I really don't care about him. I was worried about Manhattan, but what's your response to that?
I was worried about the children in our district that had men in their locker rooms at school, men in their restrooms at school, same at the swimming pool. And so we had an opportunity to fix the situation, not only for Manhattan and District 51, but all of Kansas. So it was a fantastic time to add an amendment onto a bill and get it through.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was much more than just that, you know, one person in there. This next one, which I'm going to try to get up on the screen again, Ed can help me out here. And this is my favorite of all of them is, and I'll read it here. And this is by this Carmichael.
Representative Carmichael.
Uh,
Yes, he's an
let's see.
attorney and he has some clever words.
Yeah, he says how this bill will force transgender men who live as and look like men to use women's restrooms, Carmichael said. It says he, she because um, he said she, and I threw he in there because it's a he. No, it's no,
Yeah.
excuse me. He said he, and it actually is a she, is going to sit down at the stall next to your granddaughter, Carmichael said. Is is that what you want? Not only that, there in other facilities which have locker rooms or the like, that a hairy faced man will be standing naked showering next to your daughter. That's what this bill requires. Now, I can't help it. I got to finish here. Is that think about what this guy is saying, that he prefers that a woman who has a hairy face and looks like a man is going to be naked next to your daughter. He prefers a real man with real biological, may equipment be able to shower with this hairy face next to your daughter?
Yes. So we sat through 6 hours of that. 6 hours we missed amazing committees with good bills to be working and having hearings on, listening to people argue really weird things like that. And it was a long day. And Carmichael will be Carmichael, and that's what he does. And so none of us were shocked when that quote came out.
So, oh, we've got a follow on question, which is actually very similar to what we just saw. How can I, as a post op trans man with a full beard who posts 100% of the time, use the women's bathroom on campus as this bill would like me to without causing cis women in the bathroom emotional distress?
Well, I guess my question would be, what is your biological sex? And the bill requires you to follow your biological sex, and that's the bathroom that you use.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, we just went over it
Hmm.
when we were responding to Carmichael. Is the other choice is that we let real men into the women's room because we have no objective way to tell, which um, I say will take us to that question that was up earlier was how you do the enforcement on this. And actually, what this bill, the first part you talked about, was getting the driver's licenses, getting the IDs with the correct biological sex, which,
Yes.
if you're in that situation, you do have a way, quote, to prove what you are without some inspection, or if you have some operations or whatever, you're still able to provide a form or some way to prove which your real sex is.
Well,
Correct.
and when I saw this posted in the local subreddit, that was the majority of the responses was, "Are we going to be doing genital checks?" I'm going to try to make this one come up on the screen, but it's such a long. Yeah, if you could make your comments a little bit shorter or break them up, but basically it's asking the same thing: Are we going to be checking people's genitals, et cetera, et cetera?
No, so if someone wants to bring a complaint, so let's say that you were at the Manhattan City Pool, then you would be making a claim against the government entity that violated this. And so you would be able to file a complaint with the Attorney General over that, and then the Attorney General will be investigating that government entity. And so at that point in time, if it's a person, they're going to be able to see on that driver's license whether it's male or female. Was this an issue? Not. We have security cameras everywhere now. It's going to be pretty simple to see who was walking in and out and around the area.
So the one thing I want to bring up too is in that original bill, SB 180, it did have language about the reporting to the state of what the actual sex of people was, and it was supposed to be by biological sex. Interesting, Manhattan as a city complied with that part. So they actually reported back or listed people according to the correct sex, but then allowed them to use the
The
opposite
identity, yeah.
facility on that.
Yeah, because they went with that city. I don't know if it actually was an ordinance or just a policy statement, which was that the whole gender identity
Right. That
that
there
they
was
went with.
it was an ordinance that
Yeah.
was there. So
So this bill would trump that. Senate Bill 244 would trump that, and the government entities are going to have to comply with the bill, or you as a citizen can report them for being in non-compliance. And the fees are pretty hefty. So I was wanting to pull the bill up just so I made sure. So the civil penalty for a government entity that violates it is $25,000 for the first one and $125,000 for each one after that. So that could add up pretty quickly. I would really hope that cities and counties will do what's right and follow the law.
and I'm going to say something here, and I want you to say whether I'm correct or not. The way for private entities, like say for like Genesis Health Club in Manhattan, they're a private institution.
Mhm.
They follow whatever policies they want to follow. So this would not force them to do anything.
Correct.
However, it does provide them the ability to do things correctly. In
Yes.
other words, they can legally say only men in the men's locker room, only women in the women's locker room. The state has said that that is not discrimination to do that. Now, they don't have to follow that, just like the city didn't follow it originally, but they can have that policy. For that one question before about the person who said they've had the whole transition surgery and that's the way they present, I would assume if Genesis wanted to, they could say in the women's locker room, only biological women. In the men's locker room, it's a free for all, it's unisex, anybody can go in there. I mean, my assumption is they could do that if
They're
they,
a they're a private entity, and this bill does not require private entities to do that. Like you said, it does set the precedent. If you are a private entity and we're concerned of potentially being sued or making the social media rounds, you now have a ground to say, because if it's, the state of Kansas as the government is saying, this is what we're going to be doing. So it does give you that really good backbone to support what they're wanting to do.
yeah, so we won't have a situation like that spa in California
Oh, that was terrible.
where they had the naked man in the women's locker room and there was
Yes.
young girls in there and everything and the spa wasn't allowed to kick him out because California law said that they got in there, and that's what Manhattan ordinance says. But under this bill, well, they could let him in. They can say no, you can't go in there if they want to, and they won't be sued and they won't be forced to do it.
Yeah, the public entities.
Yeah, the so
The government, so the bill is very specific about the government entities, the public building. So the public building would be your government entity. So your state, your local, your county, any facility that is owned by them is what falls under this.
I assume the schools.
Yes, the schools are included in that. Absolutely.
Okay, and I know that it's not in this bill, but you guys have already passed before banning the transgender surgeries and the hormones and
Yes.
everything for minors. And Ed, did you see that post on the, if we can get
That
up?
was Senate Bill 63 from last year. And just kind of as a recap while you're trying to find that, that Senate bill was for any minor 18 and under, you could not get chemical, meaning medication, or surgical treatment for transgenderism.
So, but anyway, we just wanted to know there was good news out there
Yes.
that the uh, can you put that back up again?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was the one we were
The,
talking
That
the
about.
was the one.
plastic surgeon, was it the
The
plastic
plastic surgery.
surgeons?
Yeah. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons did new guidelines regarding no gender related breast, chest, genital, and facial surgery until a patient is at least 19 years old.
Yeah.
Also, a 22-year-old woman identified as a boy in her teen years won a $2 million decision in a landmark lawsuit against New York doctors accused of pushing double mastectomy on her as a minor. And Ed, do you have that info on the AMA?
Yes. So, National Review asked, when they were covering the story, they asked the AMA, did they have a position on the plastic surgeon statement? And their answer was, the evidence for gender affirming surgical intervention in minors is insufficient for us to make a definitive statement. The AMA agrees with the ASPS that surgical interventions in minors should generally be deferred to adulthood. So they didn't come out with their own statement, but this was an answer to the press asking them, what do you have to say about that? So, and as is the case with all of these professional organizations, we're not talking about, like the journal. These aren't scientific organizations. These are trade groups. There's a spokesperson who comes out and says this, and this isn't like even the consensus of the members. This is a lot of times when the press picks up the phone and calls them and asks them about this, they get one person and they give them an answer, and then that becomes the statement for the whole group. So a lot of times when people are using these organizations as the backbone of their argument for why this is good medicine or good science, this is just a trade group with paying dues members that's representing their membership. Just the same way if you're a potato farmer and you belong to the Potato Farmers of America group. This is not a scientific organization.
Uh,
So I love that they said should be reserved until adulthood, because that's a pretty significant statement by whoever made that statement. And I think that that will be something for people to run with.
yeah. Now they did hedge it in there, like the way he read it. They said generally, they didn't say all the time, but that's a big change from them saying that was the standard of care.
Yeah,
Because
because I feel like maybe just 4 or 5 years ago they were pushing the transgender care that it was the best thing in the world. I mean, we're all familiar with how they would, use the awful that your children are going to commit suicide and how they pushed that. So this is a pretty remarkable that you've got the plastic surgeons coming out. That's huge because that's a huge
that's
part
who does that.
of the surgeries. That's mainly the people involved in those. So
Well,
what a great day.
the jury in the New York case, the Bavarian trial, the jury listened to the mother when she said one of the things that really compelled the jury to rule against the doctor was when she said that she felt coerced. That statement that you just used about that whole idea of would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son, vice
Yep.
versa, and she said that, and the court believed that that was coercion, and that right there, the whole idea of even entering into the conversation with minors or anyone for that matter, bringing suicide as a solution or as a threat or as a blackmail technique, it's just despicable.
It
Um,
is.
the idea that you want to take something that's elective surgery, basically, that it shouldn't even be elective surgery, but it's elective surgery. The only way that you can make it life-saving surgery is by saying, well, if you don't give it to the person who wants it, they're going to kill themselves. It's all such a twisted logic, and we have there's audience capture in a lot of the media that we are exposed to. There's the trade groups are captured by some of the extremists, and there's a very small minority of people that are pushing this agenda. But when you get it in front of a jury or a courtroom, and everyone, and the way courtrooms work is it's a very deliberative process of getting the actual facts out there and listening to everyone's story. And
Hmm.
every time this happens, when it's in a courtroom and it's the dispassionate, fact-based arguments that are happening, the transgender argument is losing every time,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
just going to
losing
keep
its
losing.
time. It is, and we have seen overseas, in other countries, they started banning this a few years back because of all the negative. We just are taking a little longer to get there, but we're finally getting there. And I'm really proud of these jurors who are on these juries working these tough cases to be able to come up with what I would consider a very rational, real decision.
Yeah, now we seem to be having a little technical problem. Me and Ed are frozen on the screen. I believe everyone can hear everything. So I'm going to try to, first, I'm going to remove you, Ed, from the scene and put you
Okay.
back.
Well,
I'm talking about in the studio.
okay, mine was still working, so maybe it's on your
Yeah,
end.
Or
mine
maybe
was.
we just don't see each other. Megan's the one when I see moving
Okay.
on this right now.
Everything's working on my end.
So the okay,
And I'm looking at Facebook right now, and it's all
and we're
working
all
there
on
too.
and we're moving. Okay, we'll just keep going then. The one thing I just want to say, because we had a good discussion, but I don't think anyone said it through the whole discussion, is this idea that kids will commit suicide if they don't transition has been debunked. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah, when
not
Chase Strangio had his chance to make the argument in front of the Supreme Court, you would have thought he would have brought all of his notes and his best arguments. Be ready to make your best case. He was unable to, and he had to admit that giving this type of surgery to, or even cross-gender hormones or anything, it does nothing to reduce suicide, and actually it goes up. So I just want to say that we are getting a flood of comments over here, and I feel negligent because I really wish we had someone on the screen. John, we need to do another podcast in the future where we invite someone into the studio.
Yes,
Because
we
I
do.
do not like having these groupthink conversations. I want to start bringing in some of these questions, but there's so
Right.
many of them,
I was actually
and
going to ask you if you had some to bring in because I got another thing, but I want to wait until we see what.
okay, then they're all actually even discussing it amongst themselves, so it's hard for me to grab one that's kind of representative of everything. So let me just put some of them up here. Some of them will answer. Some of them I'll just put on the screen so the people who are watching can see them, although they can probably see them in the comments anyways. But I'm just going to start posting them up.
No, good. Thanks, Ed.
Okay, but you guys continue to talk, and if you see one that's on the screen that you want to address, go ahead.
I don't see any on the screen yet, but while we're waiting for those, oh, there's one. I think we had that one earlier. Yes, absolutely. It is important for girls to be safe in the bathrooms 110% of the time. Oh, ugh.
Okay, so this is a lot of, and like I said in the Reddit thread, there was a lot of questions about this. This basically, and I think it's a red herring, the idea of having a genital checker. From my, what I'm guessing the point of this bill is going to be is right now we have nothing. And so if you are a woman who's in a bathroom and there's a man in there with you, and a lot of times people are saying that this is all about because people think that actual transgender people are the threat. I think that the problem is that having the bathrooms open to everyone lets people pretend that they're transgender. It's someone who's not
Yes.
transgender and is just taking advantage of the opportunity to say, because I can tell you, I know that there are people in this community that are sex offenders, and if you say all you have to do is just say that you're a woman, you're not transgender, but you say you are, and now you can go into the women's bathroom. So that's probably more of what this bill is trying to stop than anything else. People who are completely passing, especially because people who transition from men to women and women to men, it's a very different experience. People who transition generally from female to male, just because of the way the hormones work and everything, can pass much more easily than vice versa. And, if people have been able to pass for a long time and they can go into the bathroom and use it and no one says anything to them, especially if they're going into a stall with the door that closes, that's kind of not even relevant to all of this. We're talking about what is the alternative to this bill, and
Yeah,
that
I mean,
is
really, the
letting
problem
anybody
is
into the bathroom.
the problem is that this whole idea, which became a trend of self ID, and these big activist things, has really messed everything up.
Yeah, and you can see
Again,
it's a
there's
lot
no
of
one
people.
checking.
It's all about checking genitals. So if you can, Megan, or Doctor, if you can just give a succinct answer to address that main point that everyone seems to be honing in on about who's going to be checking this, and I think you already addressed it. It's about the driver's
Yeah.
licenses. It's going to the attorney general and filing a complaint after the fact.
Yes.
It's just about having some recourse if you feel like this guy just keeps coming into my bathroom. And at this point, before the law was passed, there would be nothing you could do about it.
That's the point. There was nothing that you could do about it for the men that were in there that were obviously not transitioning. They were men sitting in women's restrooms. That's completely inappropriate, opposes a major safety issue. And so this bill does not have genital checkers at restrooms at all, but it provides an avenue for any Kansas citizen to file a complaint, have that complaint investigated, and if it's found that that government entity was in violation, there is a civil penalty for that.
Yeah, can we put that one back up, Ed? The one you just had. Not where girls or women being assaulted in the bathrooms. I'd love to hear the data. Well, just here in Manhattan, which was one of the reasons this happened, was because we had lifeguards at the pool, obviously boys, going into the girls' locker room. So we had parents pulling their kids out of swim lessons uh, because of that. And also, it's not the fact of just being assaulted as well. It's just the fact that you have to get dressed and undressed in front of males, like the the what
Riley
was
Gaines.
right now, but the Will the guy the that
Oh,
Will Thomas.
um,
Will
yes.
Thomas was the male swimmer, and originally they said he was going to have his own separate change room and not be in with the women. But of course,
And he was
couldn't
right
have
there
that.
with him.
He had to be with them, so he had to get naked next to the girls. He didn't assault them, but I guarantee you they were not happy with that. And a number of them did go to the private ones, and that's just it. There's also the fact of privacy in there as well, and the fact that if you're a father of daughters, you just don't want your daughters in there with boys and men.
Well, I mean, I'm a mom. I don't need my children. I don't need my 4-year-old changing in front of a grown man that's sitting in the locker room at the swimming pool. And from a school nurse perspective, I've taken care of several girls, you know, who just need their privacy. They're changing into a woman and entering womanhood, and they don't know what's going on with their body, and they're learning everything. And we don't need men in women's restrooms whenever we're doing that. I think you froze again.
Hmm?
I can read it.
Nope, we're good. Okay.
Zev says, I was just typing something over here. Zev says, shouldn't women be able to use? So this, there's the genital checker issue. Then this is another one of the main questions, is about the people who are passing. Very, you know, if you have a man, a biological man who's very much passing and looks just like a woman, and if we force them to now use the biologically correct bathroom, it's going to throw everybody off, because now you have, I mean, you know, there's like Blair White, let's say, for example, if you're familiar with her, she's a conservative transgender biological man who looks like an attractive woman who would pass. And if she walks into the bathroom uh, and she has not had bottom surgery and she's just standing at the urinal, people are going to be wondering, hey, what's going on? Or Buck, I forgot his name, but he's a biological woman who transitioned into a man. He's got a full beard and everything. So there's this whole line of questions that I'm trying to use this one to represent those about, you're doing more harm than good, because now you're forcing these people who have gone through so much surgery and that they are so passing that it's going to upset the people in the bathroom who are wondering why there's this person that looks like a man in the bathroom with the women when they're just a biological woman with a beard.
I honestly feel like this is such a small minority of people, the outliers, just such a small outlier that it's really not going to be an issue. And if it were to be reported and were to find out to be an issue, you know, the rule goes back to biological. And so if you are biologically a female and that's what you are, and your driver's license shows that, then there's no fine, there's no anything. And if you are the one that feels that you look like that, I know lots of businesses and lots of government places that still have family restrooms. You can use that.
Yeah, and I have no idea what the answer is to this. I'll just throw it out. If you have someone in this person's situation, so they just look just like a man or can pass for a man, and uses the men's room instead of the ladies' room, and somehow someone knew that they weren't and raised a complaint, which is probably highly unlikely that a man's going to raise a complaint. But say they do, now it would be the entity, the say the city in this example, who would be saying you allowed this person to do this. Now, is there a penalty for the person and the city, or just for one?
No, there, if the city does not follow this law, then there is a fine for them. But if a person does not follow this, then they also can be charged and under the civil penalty. And I was trying to find, I'm looking through the bill, any individual who commits a second violation after being found to have violated the first time shall be liable for a civil penalty of $1,000.
Okay.
And then it goes, the penalties
Each
go up.
one for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if, let's just go back to the Manhattan City Pool because we've been using that a lot. So let's say Manhattan, they follow, but then a man goes in there, then it's not Manhattan City that's on, it would go after that man that broke the law.
Yeah. It's just if the city was to say, allow it or.
Correct.
Okay. And they would say, well, we didn't know. And which could be I mean, they could use that for a defense once.
They
No,
could, but
it would be legitimate. I mean,
I would hope that they know what the law is. I mean, we've had
well,
lots of
no. They said they couldn't tell the difference on the
Oh,
person.
yeah.
So say they, it did, look like, say a woman, but then once they got undressed in the locker room, you found out it wasn't. So they can say, well, we couldn't tell that. I think once it happened once with that particular person, then you're on notice now.
Oh, you do. Yeah.
Right. And one thing that we haven't really addressed is that just the same way that all laws are kind of brought to bear, or they're even become an issue that needs to turn into legislation, is because people are behaving a certain way and it comes to everyone's attention and it needs to be addressed. Right. And so for decades, there were no bathroom bills. People just, it respected the sign on the door, and we had social conventions that dealt with all of this. But that's gone away now, and it's because there's a certain group of people who I don't even think that they qualify as trans, but if they're autogynephilic and they're using the cover of the transgender movement now as a way to kind of be out and open with their autogynephilia, which is a man who's attracted to himself looking like a woman. Take Jessica Yaniv. This was a man in Canada who became very famous for, and the point I'm getting at is that you have people who are egregiously committing these acts over and over and over again, and part of their fetish is the reaction that they get out of people. And so they want to go into these bathrooms. They want to go to a woman's spa and have a waxing on their male genitalia because they are basically dragging the rest of society into their fetish. And if you look in any of the discussion forums that they have inside their communities, they all talk about how the sexual excitation they get when they are able to convince other people to address them as the pronoun that they want. They call it a euphoria that they're experiencing just by forcing society to recognize them the way they want to be recognized. But in Jessica Yaniv's situation, he would continuously go over and over and over again to get these waxings at a female spa. And it was just because it was a form of harassment. He was just harassing. These women did not want to do it. And because it was in Canada, of course, they passed a law that said that they had to do it. And that was what it was all about. And so a lot of the consternation that I see in the comments and in the Reddit subreddit and everything they're all red herrings. None of these things are ever going to be a problem. We aren't going to have these bearded men, women in the bathroom that are just freaking everybody out because, they look so much like a man, but they're in the women's room. That's not going to happen. The thing is that we need to be able to protect women's spaces so that these people who are getting off on getting a react. I mean, it's all through history. We've had, when I was a kid, there were these things, peeping Toms. The cartoon was a guy in a long jacket, and he would stand in the park and he would flash people. And that was all he wanted to do. He wasn't touching anybody. He wasn't trying to rape anybody. He just wanted to expose himself. And it seems like that, character that was like a cartoon character of a sex offender has now become something that is the hero in society. And that, I think, is what this law is mostly trying to protect people from, those people.
Yeah, and there are true transgenders. I know some that will actually say they identify that, but they know they're really not. I mean, they have a sense of reality to them, so that they, like a trans woman is a woman, they don't say that because they know there is a biological uh, difference. Which,
I Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, John. Well, I just really feel like a lot of the comments again are those outlying circumstances, and that has nothing to do with why this bill is here. The role of government is to protect the rights of citizens and to protect citizens, and that's what this bill does.
Yeah, but along that note of really knowing what you are, uh, and Ed, if you can find it, I just popped it on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
From a political division standpoint, uh, we've had this Kansas Democrat State House candidate, Christine Schultz. She supports boys and girls bathroom and says she doesn't know if she is a girl. We actually posted this on the Our Manhattan page today with the video of it. And we seem to, like in the state house, and I don't know in our current Kansas state house, but I know like in the federal government, it's like every single Democrat votes the other way. I mean, is that the way it is in the state house, that they're all like a trans woman is a real woman type of thing? I mean,
It's a lot of this movement is to be loud and create chaos. And that's where they get their oxygen and that's where they get their energy. And so things at the state house with regards to just bills in general, you would be surprised that a lot of times, like today, we took a vote on a bill, and there was like 120 of us all agreed on it. But when it comes to societal norms, that's where we vastly differ. And I think that goes back to people's morals and their values and what they believe in.
yeah, because we want to. I mean, I've been putting up the different candidates who've declared and everything else as we're starting to get into this election cycle. And we want to get some of the Democrats on. But frankly, I think one of my first questions is going to be, can men get pregnant? So we can just kind of settle that right up front. And,
Not a biologist. I don't know.
so we can just say, are we going to deal with reality with this? Or what are we, what are we uh, going to do? So
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to, and I kind of
I
brought up
think
a
they mean
whole bunch of.
dysphoria.
Well, no, she's because I did bring up the idea of people
Oh,
who
okay.
experience a sense of euphoria when their gender identity is acknowledged, and it makes them happy if you acknowledge their
Well, that
pronouns.
autogynephilia is someone who gets sexually aroused by thinking of themselves as a
Right, and I don't
woman.
want to conflate all these different things because, of course, if you are trans, identify as the opposite sex, and you can have the people in your workplace or in your community call you by the pronoun that you want to be called, you will be happy, and that's a sense of euphoria. But I don't want that to be confused with the autogynephilias who are. And I don't want to get too explicit, but they are showing signs of arousal sexually when they are harassing these people and invading spaces and getting the reactions that aren't always positive reactions. But I just want to address Taylor's comment specifically. I just did a quick AI search. It's Gemini, so I'm not doing any crazy going to any right-wing sources or anything, but according to Gemini search, it says that gender euphoria, a profound sense of joy. Oh, and I should probably read her comment, which was she said, okay, anyway, that's not the one I was thinking of. I guess, and that it is a lot of very. That's very typical of the arguments that in the debates that you get into.
It is, and I think
Yeah.
I find it sad that there's a couple people that seem to be filling up the comments with just craziness, and they can have their thoughts and we can have ours. And this was an amazing bill that was passed and will be overridden, and by the governor's veto. She'll veto it, we'll override it, and so next week this will be law, and I'm so excited for that.
Well, and yeah, and resorting to ad hominem attacks like that is usually a sign of a weak argument. And
Oh yeah.
they are getting very upset because they have captured the media, the schools, for so long, and now they're the pushback, and they're seeing this 80-20 issue is not on their side, and they're just all they can do is scream and yell and call names.
Yep.
But I just want to address her in a academic style debate here. Is that so? She said gender euphoria is not a sexual response, and according to where did it go? Gender euphoria is a profound sense of joy, completeness, and alignment with one's gender identity. It can sometimes manifest as a physical or sexual arousal. So, and that is it. As I don't want to be pulled into your fetish, and I'm certainly sure that if I had a daughter or my wife does not want to be dragged into your fetish because you're getting some type of sexual arousal because you're being forced to call. I mean, we're not even. Thank God we are now past the point to where people are being forced to use people's pronouns. I always refuse to do it. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's just something you should do as a matter of politeness,"
No.
and it's like, no. I mean, this is like, I'm not going to let you control
Compelled
control
speech.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's compelled speech and it's lying. It's not the truth.
Yeah,
So,
it's the whole thing. 1+1 = 3, and no.
Yeah.
You can't force me to say that, and that is another part of this whole debate is, trying to control people, make us do what they want them to do. It's a sense of power,
And that's
these
why
are
it's
people
getting
who haven't
loud.
had power for much of their lives, and they have now found that there's this way that they can have power, and now they're losing it, and they're getting very angry.
Yeah. They're just
move,
waiting for some more oxygen, and we just do what's right and protect women and children and just keep going forward. We're not feeding it their oxygen that they're wanting.
now, moving on, there was that other bill, SB 63, and this had to
Yes.
do with not state employees not being able to socially transition children. And we actually asked, Eric Reed 383 about that. And he said, well, we're not state employees. And it looked like that actually is the way that works out, that they're not compelled under this bill. Is there going to be any update to that or any other way we're going to get this taken care of?
Sure. So Senate Bill 63 defines state employee, and at the time, a large majority of us believed that a state employee was also a teacher. But we've kind of gotten some rulings from the AG office. I wouldn't call them rulings, but thoughts that
Opinion.
that's not necessarily true. And so one way that we have been able to combat some of that is through a bill that I brought forth, and we had a hearing in the Education Committee, and it passed out, so it's sitting below the line right now. It's House Bill 2420, and it's requiring schools to obtain parent permission before pulling children out of class for mental health services. Now, I know that might scare people a little bit, but they can still absolutely ask kids how their day was. How are you doing? How was your weekend? What'd you do? Tell me about your trip. That's awesome. They can still absolutely do that. And counselors can still go into the classroom as a whole and talk to kids about the importance of exercise and mental health and that kind of stuff. But they cannot be taking kids out of class during the week without parent permission and talking to them about their mental health. That is not okay. Parents are the ones that need to be in control. And this is putting the parents back in the driver's seat of things that are going on with their children. The other thing this bill does is it still allows schools to perform screeners and intervene if they feel the child is a risk of self harm or harm to others. And then we did add a civil penalty to this bill as well, because what we're finding is when the legislature passes laws, things aren't being enforced because there's no penalties with it. So this bill also comes with a penalty.
Well, that's what happened with SB 180. That's why you're having to do this other one
Yep.
here. And I saw some comments regarding the bill. It was interesting because in our Manhattan, there was some pro, some con, mostly pro. On some other sites, the con was basically, oh, they have to do this because the parents, it could be abusive parents
Yeah.
type of thing. And it's like, as far as I know, they can still address it. If they think they have that situation, they should be jumping on it and getting a hold of the authorities right
Absolutely.
away.
We have mandated reporting laws, and those individuals that work in schools are mandated reporters. And so they would be following those policies and procedures for mandated reporting and getting the children the help that they need.
So, Now, there was one other thing that I wanted to, I happened to notice it today. And Ed, if you can spot it, I just put it up on the comment section. It has to do with that bill. There's a federal program that allows, I think, people to get like credits or whatever to use for school. Here's a federal education tax credit program. So our
Right.
state, it means Kansas, can help working families access educational options that best meet their children's needs, including public, private, and faith-based schools, without impacting the state budget. So it wouldn't affect the state budget, but we can actually get tax credits, and then
At the
that can
federal level.
at the federal level. And all that has to happen is your governor just needs to opt in. But our
Yep.
governor, because she's a Democrat and Trump's a Republican, won't opt in. So Kansans can't use this. She's keeping away a credit out of pure partisan politics. There's other Democratic governors that are
Yep.
coming in, but ours won't do it. And I think you're trying to do a bill to basically which I assume you'll need 2/3 to do it.
We will. We will need 2/3. So 84 and then 27 in the Senate. So this bill did get a hearing in the House Education Committee and we passed it out. It's sitting below the line. I suspect we'll be taking a vote on it on the House floor this coming week. How that works, it's actually a really amazing opportunity for parents to be able to get a federal tax credit for if they donated up to $1,700 to an SGO. And the SGOs are scholarship granting organizations that can help you pay for whether it's tutoring or an extra class or violin lessons or anything like that, or even private school. We have SGOs for private schools as well.
So cool. Hopefully that one can make it through. So is there any more?
Yeah, here's a good one. This is actually a good one. If a person from California, and this has to do with reciprocity between the states. So imagine that you're from a state that had your birth certificate changed, and then you come to Kansas. How is that going to be handled? And these are those edge cases that need to be considered because this could happen.
Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head if our bill addressed that. That is a great question that I don't have an answer to right now.
So the yeah, well, and it's like anything. There's always going to be some of those situations that you don't address. I would say, if someone from California tries to do what they did in that spa from California, people are going to figure out real quick that their driver's license wasn't correct. And then you would have testimony from the females in that facility that would be able to point that out, and they would still then, regardless of that ID, would knowingly have gone into that other facility to use it. But in a sense, it could be somewhat of a loophole for a while if you're not in a place where you'd be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to I just quickly glance through the bill and I'm not seeing something right away. The bill's 8 pages, so I don't want to.
Yeah, and that could be something that I know they'll try to do it on the federal level, but need to get enough to get it through the Senate to do something like that. But no, that's a very good question to have. And that's why it's always hard to take care of every single little thing. And
always have an outlier.
Yeah, and you try to do the bill without the enforcement part, and people just wouldn't play along with it.
Yep.
There. So, is there anything else, Ed, in those comments we didn't address? Or
well, I mean, there's God.
I mean, if it's just
over 100, but
if it's just spiteful stuff, it doesn't.
Well, no, there's some good commentary going on. It's a lot of people that are discussing things amongst themselves, but people are still concerned that you're not addressing the tough questions. But the tough questions seem to be the ones that we've addressed, which are, what are you going to do about the biological woman, who's been taking transgender hormones or maybe has had surgery and she's got a beard, and now she goes into the woman's restroom, and the women in the bathroom think a man is in there with them. So your
they're just
bill
yeah.
is almost forcing that situation to happen, and then other people are still saying, about the genital checkers. So I'm not posting any of those because it's just reiterating the same thing over and over again. And I think they're not upset that you're not answering it. It's that they're not getting the answer that they want.
Yeah.
Bingo.
And I think one of the problems too is we've ended up in a situation like this because we had, even though it wasn't codified exactly in law with penalties, as you said before, Ed, that you only use the men's room if you were a man, a women's room if you were a woman. And even though there wasn't a law, people lots of times took the law into their own hands if a man went into the women's room, and people kind of knew it and they didn't do it. We got into self-ID, so you had people who were obviously men going in there and doing it, and so now we end up in a situation like we end up in. And again, our answer is you have your ID that says that's what you are.
Well, I want to bring up something because it seemed like an issue that someone raised that is important because they're talking about people being safe, physically safe, and they are concerned that if a biological man who's transitioned to passing is in a men's washroom, they could be subject to violence because the men who are in that bathroom think that there's a woman in there. And so, and this is the same as the other one I just mentioned, but the flip of that. We aren't the first ones to talk about this. It's important now because you just passed a law that makes this,
right.
an actionable situation and is kind of forcing these situations. Again, they're only in public restrooms. This isn't going to happen. Every private business can make their own rules regarding this. But
and we also have rules on battery. We have rules on assault. This bill allows for police, if there's a situation, to access the bathroom. This bill allows janitors to go into the bathroom. This bill allows moms or dads who need to help their children go into the bathroom to help their children. So, some of the arguments seem like, I'm not answering questions or whatever. I'm just being real with what the situation is. And we have laws already on the books that would protect somebody getting beat up. That's assault and battery. Like I would hope that Manhattan police would respond to that, and I would hope that our local county attorneys would prosecute that.
Okay, and I just want to put this one on the screen because this is, I think, one that I was from memory trying to bring up. But it's Taylor saying that you aren't realizing that it makes it so that cis men can claim to be trans men to attack women. Now,
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't. Again, it's.
Well, this whole
it's just
issue
an outlier
is so complicated
situation.
and confusing because we have people who are denying reality. We have people who are using the wrong
Right.
pronouns. So at some point, some of this is intentional chaos that's being
Absolutely
that's
it is.
being dragged into society because there are people that just want to just watch it all.
They
burn.
want to cause chaos
Yeah.
and just don't give it the oxygen.
But
that
maybe
they
we
want.
just aren't understanding our question. So you aren't.
Yeah, I
okay.
think we just might
It
not
makes
be
it so cis
understanding.
men can claim to be a trans woman, a trans man. Okay, so you have a biological man, and he's saying, "I'm actually a biological woman," who's pretending to be a man. So now I get to go into the women's washroom and attack women. Okay. Well, yeah, isn't it sad that like this whole thing that's just come up in the past, 5 years or 10 years or so has created all this chaos, and we're trying to maybe bring things back to normal.
Truth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
reality.
The answer you'll get from the very staunch women's writers, the TERFs, as they trans. How does that stand for? Trans exclusionary radical feminist or whatever. They don't care. They say, if you did something to yourself, I'm sorry, but you still have to use the facility that you really
Thank you, John.
are.
Yeah, I knew that there was an answer somewhere that used to be my go-to answer for all of this, and that is that yes, if you do this to yourself, these are the consequences to decisions that you've made, changes that you've made to your body. If you were born a biological man and you do all these things to yourself to make yourself look like a woman, and now you go into the men's, now you have to go to the men's restroom, and you're being mistreated because of it, or let's just say people are being rude to you. Well, yeah, that's what you did. I mean, that would be like if I wore a shirt everywhere that had the N-word on it, and I was mad because people didn't like it. I mean, this is a choice that you made on how you're going to present yourself to the world.
So, Megan, you didn't know what a TERF was?
No.
You don't know TERF Island? That's England. It's trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Yes.
Wow. But it's like every day we're adding, like, right? We had LGB,
Well,
LGBTQ,
these-
No, this is something completely different.
No, these women are staunch women's writers, and they don't
Yeah.
want men in any of their facilities, and they don't care.
This was
I mean,
the first rift that the crack that appeared in the left on this issue.
Yeah,
was
usually
you have
they're
traditional feminists who have been working all their lives for women's spaces, for women's rights, and they're partners in the LGBT community because they're all on the progressive side of the
a
spectrum.
lot of lesbians in that.
Yes, a lot of lesbians. Well, all of a sudden they realize that there's a problem here because the trans community wants to come and have men come into our spaces, and so all of a sudden, and I think it started with a gay rights parade in England where these women wanted to march and they were kicked out of the parade. These lesbians, because there was a big rift between lesbians basically and transgenders, and so trans exclusionary radical feminist is a derogatory term that the transgenders use to, or the
Right,
whole,
but the
left
TERFs
wing.
has now adopted it as a badge of honor to be called a TERF.
I
because
learned something new every day, and I was not expecting to learn that. So thank you.
Okay, so the one of my two last questions would has actually nothing to do with any of what we've been talking about. Anything new on property tax cap?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because the answer is still, I don't know.
It seems like there's a lot of momentum for that cap on valuations, but not so
Yes.
much for the other side
Well,
of
we're
it.
trying to get the mill levy situation worked out because we've talked before, we cap one, the other is just going to go up to make up the difference, and that's
Right.
unacceptable. And so I highly suspect, I really thought our house tax bills would drop by today, maybe tomorrow. I will say it's interesting, and John, you've been following politics for a long time. You know that the last year and this year are condensed schedule, right? Like the 90-day has been completely changed than years past. And our revisers, which are the attorneys that write our laws, are really behind. And so I had to wait over 10 days to get a bill draft, which is really unheard of. So our revisers are working overtime. And so just those tax bills are so intricate and they affect so many different statutes. And you've got all these different organizations, and you've got ag land and commercial land and property. I mean, you just got all these different parties at play. It does take a bit of time, but at the same time, I'm getting a little antsy because not next week, but the following week is turnaround. So everything that was in the House goes to the Senate and vice versa, which means we're halfway through session. So we got to get moving on that.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to do a prediction, I bet if you get anything, it's probably just going to be on valuations. And if that's all we get, I'd say take it. But you'll be revisiting it again. It'll be kind of like what we just talked about. You did one and didn't go all the way, so now you had to go back. I think the valuation cap will help, but it won't do everything, and it won't
Correct.
satisfy everybody.
Correct. If we are only given the valuation cap and that's it, I'm going to vote for it because it's going to provide relief. But it's also potentially not, because your mill levy is going to go up. But I will still vote for it. But I really want to make sure that we're addressing both sides of the issue.
But the one thing it will do is, one, it'll help that individual who gets that would have gotten an outrageous one. And it'll also take one of the excuses away from the person, because they're going to have to raise the mill levy more to get what they want. So they're not going to be able to say, hey, I kept the mill levy fine when valuations went up 10. So that, I
Right.
mean, it will do some good
Yeah.
with that.
The other thing that the House is looking at is the BOTA. BOTA is that Board of Tax
Yeah,
Appeal.
yeah.
And what's happening is somebody might appeal and get a win, but then the following year they just double and they just keep doubling. And so that's really not quote unquote fair to that taxpayer, right? They had a win from BOTA, they appealed and won. And so making sure that those appeals really stick, that's another priority that we're going to be having out of the House. And then the other issue that has been talked about in the House side is establishing like a tax stabilization fund, kind of like we have the overall state budget stabilization fund, which has got over $2 billion in it. But this tax stabilization fund would really help local governments that are needing assistance with projects, not raise property taxes. So that's kind of the ideas floating around. I'm not really sure where those are all at specifically, but that is another thing that's being floated there.
Is there anything going on with dark store? I haven't heard about it lately.
Mm-mm. Not that I'm aware of, unless it's on the Senate side. They're the dark side.
So if you
Is
don't know
that,
what dark store is, that's
yeah, I was
where
gonna,
a company has a commercial facility, and they say that they build it for $20 million, and so it gets valued
Mhm.
at $20 million. And they say, well, my return on this investment really isn't $20 million, or if I tried to sell it, I couldn't get $20 million. So you need to lower my property uh, tax. They try to make the valuation. They try to make the valuation something different based on if it was a vacant building, how much would it go for?
right. Well, that was my understanding of it. Was it was the difference between looking at the value of the property based on how much money they're making off of it versus
Right.
what the property is worth intrinsically.
Well,
Well, yeah, they want to make it look like if I was a totally vacant building, what could I get? And it's like take the Foot Locker facility in Junction City, 1.43 million square feet, and if it all of a sudden was to go vacant, there's hardly any buyers for that building.
well, but the other issue is you've got people that have bought commercial or property around commercial saying they're going to build on it and then they don't build on it and then it's not taxed as commercial, it's still taxed as ag land, and
It's
you got all of these issues.
yeah. So it is a hard one for people to understand, but it is a very serious one for localities.
Well,
Out
I
there.
just get concerned when I start hearing about it's we start talking about what something's worth because it's making money, and it starts to look like a Elizabeth Warren wealth tax type of thing,
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, don't worry about how much money I'm making. I'm paying income tax or whatever on the money that I'm making. This lot is what this lot is, whether I flatten it or I mean, I'm paying for police and sewer. I guess if you have a lot of inventory that the fire department is going to need to spend extra water to put out the fire or something. But other than that, what business is the government's if you have a successful business or not, or if it's just a vacant lot?
Yeah. Well, it's a difference between if you have a residential house, it's going to sell whether it's you're living in it or not. It's probably going to sell for the same price. Where a business, especially a large facility, all of a sudden be vacant, depending on your market situation, it may not sell for very.
Yeah, I'm way in over my head. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Last one. Anything new on the DEI front?
Oh, yeah, we're having a lot of fun in the education committee with that. So I think I told you last time I was here a couple weeks ago that we did the big hearing in December. And then this week I testified in the House on our DEI bill. This was taken from the Goldwater Institute. They work closely with ALEC, which is the American Legislators Exchange Council, and they help us develop good legislation. And so this legislation, if passed, would require that universities not mandate or compel students to take any DEI related course. So, like right now, you cannot get a degree in social work from K State without taking mandated DEI courses. That would be gone. They wouldn't be allowed to do that. You can't graduate from the College of Arts and Science without taking a multicultural class that contains a preponderance of non-white stuff. That would no longer be able to be. So this law is really good. It has things left broad for a reason, and I'm looking forward to being able to have this bill on the House floor.
Okay, good. So I know K-State used to, because my daughter really didn't appreciate when they came in, the orientation material was full of
Yep.
DEI
So
stuff.
this also has a specific section for freshman orientation as well.
Oh,
And it allows faculty to continue to maintain, that's the biggest issue with DEI is faculty sometimes worry about their academic freedom. But the university is still more than welcome to offer the courses. They just can't
oh yeah,
mandate them. So if a student wants to get a degree in gender studies, that student is more than able to do so. But if a student doesn't want a degree in gender studies, they shouldn't be required to take a course that's all about LGBTQ and everything else.
you got a question.
Yeah, just
I
more of
mean,
a comment, and I think you were answering it in the middle of me posting it. But basically, yeah, if you want to be a social worker, then you can take those classes. It's not saying that you can't take them. It's just that if you
Right.
are in a business class or something, you don't have to.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
I would love to get rid of gen ed classes too. And just so you know, the Higher Learning Commission, which is known as HLC, accredits universities. And our universities are accredited by HLC, and they have come out with a new recommendation to decrease the number of hours needed for a bachelor's degree. And this would help get rid of all of that extra fluff in general education in our courses, so you can go to college for the classes that you really need to learn to be able to be in your profession. So K-State actually applied to have one of their degree programs do this, and the Board of Regents kind of pushed back, and then they developed this whole committee to study and all of this stuff. So I do give K-State huge credit for jumping on and really trying to do that for their students.
And there's a significant delay in, and I'm watching our Facebook feed over here, and we're answering questions from like 2 minutes ago. So if it looks like people are asking questions that we've already answered, it's probably because of that. But I think you probably already answered Brandon's question about what if the industry accreditation requires classes. Well, then you would take those classes.
Well, the industry, so actually the accreditation, that's an interesting word. So I'm not sure if you're meaning like if you were in the gender and women's studies industry, then obviously they would require those courses. If you are going into ag engineering, they're not going to be requiring these courses. However, last session, we did pass a law that says that accrediting bodies of our universities cannot punish our universities for breaking state law. And so if this were to pass, this DEI law were to pass, accrediting bodies would no longer be able to force our universities to comply with things that break our state laws.
Interesting.
Yep. We did a lot of good work last year.
Yeah, and accrediting organizations have been wielding quite a bit of power. Going back to our last topic, whether it's law schools and medical schools, and it's the transgender issue and all these DEI stuff. It is the
We would end it.
Yeah, I lost it. Are you there, John?
I'm there. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you too. I don't know where Ed went.
Ed, are you there?
There he is. I don't hear you though.
Can't hear you, Ed.
Okay, I'm back. Yep, sorry about that. Anyway,
our broadcast ended.
It still says live on my end.
Yeah.
Mine says
maybe
ended.
That's a sign. John, it's your Facebook group, so if you said it's ended, I will click the end button if you want me to.
Well, no. I'm saying mine says that it ended already. Do you still show us up?
Yep, it says it's still ticking. 1 hour and 18 minutes, 1 hour and 19 minutes.
Okay, let's keep going.
Still live. Yep.
Sorry about that. We did have that. Lost you for a second there.
Yep.
So, okay. So, no, that was interesting about the accredit thing. Well, My list is exhausted here. Is there anything left out there, Ed?
No, we're
I
good.
can
We
I
were,
address one of the questions in the comment?
yeah,
Brandon also said that the social work accreditation requires classes in DEI. We are well aware. Actually, to be honest with you, you can't get a social work degree from any state university without taking a massive amount of DEI courses. And so, if this law were to pass, the university is going to have to fix those situations to where you wouldn't be compelled to do that.
cool. Yeah, I'm sorry if we were. We got a lot more comments this time than we normally do. And so in the past, my routine has been to just address all of them and put them all on the screen. It was a little too much today, and it was really just a lot of debate within the comment section. So obviously, people can continue to talk about this. They can read all the comments. I think pretty much everyone who's watching this live stream is probably watching it on Facebook, so they can see all the comments down there. And I hope that we got to all of the questions in general, if not each one of them specifically.
Oh. Do you have any final words, Megan?
Buckle up because we're just getting started.
Okay. And I just want to tell our audience, I'm glad we had a lot of participation here. I think Ed brought it up before, is we need to try to get some point counterpoint, or we got to see if we can get some people from the other side, so to speak, on some of these issues on, so we
Yeah.
can not just address what we get from the comments, but have someone in here that can talk from the other point of
Yeah,
view.
Uh, if you have a second, Brandon also wants to know about the tenure bill.
I'm not aware of what now. Okay, so we do have a higher education committee. They typically only deal with the budgets of the higher ed. They may have a bill there, but I'm not aware of one in our House Education Committee. It doesn't mean that one's not been filed, and it doesn't mean that it's not in the Senate. I'm just not aware of one in our House Education right now.
Okay, I think that's it.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you, Megan. We really appreciate it, especially
Yeah.
because you coming back so soon, because we couldn't get into this topic. Obviously, it was worthwhile considering the participation.
I told you it would be worth. I was so excited when I could finally call you and be like, I can talk.
Yes, and we had the extra fun of talking about ice at the same
We
time
did.
here
We did.
If
tonight.
anybody wants to be a guest on a future podcast, please leave a comment to that effect, and we will get in touch
Right,
with you.
or you can message our Manhattan too, and
Yep.
we'll get the information that way. So thank you, everybody. We're going to sign off. As I'm posted a number of times, we're going to try to get, as we get into election season now, is try to get the candidates. We're having some filing for House seats, as well as we've got county commission
Yeah.
coming up too. So we're going to want to get those folks on and hear what they have to say. So,
Yep, all 5 House members that represent the Manhattan area will be up for re-election. So
yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right. I'm going to click it now, and then we'll see how long it takes to actually turn off. So click.